Welcome to Soundwaves, a Transformers publication history. I'm Ian, a longtime fan of the Transformers and its various fictions. You can find me posting hobby content online at @AnotherTimeTF.
And I'm Lexi, Ian's girlfriend and a newcomer to the Transformers fandom, with no previous knowledge of the story behind the bots.
On this podcast, we go through the history of the Transformers in comic book form and roughly publishing order. Today, we hold a brief but moving discussion on Transformers Marvel UK issues 29 through 32. Two interesting behind-the-scenes situations inform our issues this time, all aimed to slot directly between issues 8 and 9 of the ongoing US series. First, with the shift into weekly and full-color printing, then Transformers Marvel UK editor Ian Rimmer saw fit to integrate the comic more closely with the currently airing cartoon. Hence, issues 29 and 30 are, minus their framing device, a rare adaptation of a cartoon episode, something that only occurs one other time during the entire Marvel run, and the only time it occurs under the pen of either main series writer. Lexi, you pointed out that this might partially be due to wanting to have the full cast in an issue at this point. That certainly does seem plausible.
Yeah, because it's a flashback, they are able to have all the Autobots up and running, so I figured that was probably also part of their decision.
Yeah, it definitely seems likely with more eyes on the book and wanting to attract a broader audience with the publishing shift. It really doesn't serve the series at this point potentially to have what was the status quo of the book, which was most of the cast out of commission, down to just a few core characters, and very far removed from what the starting status quo and status quo of the cartoon was. So I guess this just goes to show how far the book had already deviated from the status quo and what you'd expect from the series, and what perhaps was in its best interests as a toy-moving or promotional vehicle, which again I think is wholly for the better. The second set of circumstances that apply here is that after their introduction, the US book will not use the Dinobots again for the better part of a year, so minor spoiler alerts. Marvel UK must have been aware of this, giving them extra leeway to go ahead and do their own stories with the cast.
I see. That's why they went away at the end on their own adventure.
So our stories this time are, for completeness' sake, Decepticon Dam-Busters, running through UK issues 29 and 30 by Simon Furman with art by John Stokes, and the Wrath of Guardian and Wrath of Grimlock running across number 31 and 32, also written by Simon Furman, as will be the norm moving forward, with art by Barry Kitson and Mark Farmer. We'll get into our thoughts and reactions, but first, some brief summaries. Decepticon Dam-Busters, Marvel UK issues 29 and 30. As Ratchet treks home through the Oregonian countryside with the Dinobots in tow, scaring local American pub patrons who only speak the Queen's English, Ratchet recounts to the confused Dinobots the story of the time the Autobots attempted to stop a Decepticon Hydra energy theft.
Marvel UK issues 31 and 32, The Wrath of Guardian and the Wrath of Grimlock. The situation: the Dinobots take on the reprogrammed Guardian. The outcome: failure. Buster faces growing pains as the creation matrix allows him to harness his hidden mechanic prowess. Ratchet gets to work on fixing up the Autobots, who discover that the Guardian is equipped with a self-destruct function and is set to blow. Time is short, and the Dinobots take out their anger on the battle drone. Swoop takes a final flight, chartering the explosive Guardian out of the mountain to explode in the sky. The pterodactyl Autobot gets caught in the crossfire, sacrificing himself. His friends hold a brief but moving ceremony for their lost brother. The remaining dinos then set off on their own, leaving Ratchet and the other Autobots to continue rebuilding.
Okay, so let's talk about Decepticon Dam-Busters. Lexi, what is there to say about Decepticon Dam-Busters?
Not a whole lot.
Okay. Yeah, so a little bit of context here. So this is an adaptation of, I believe, the second episode of the cartoon, and I explained the background just a moment ago. They wanted to tie in more with the cartoon to get more eyes on it post-publishing format change. Not a bad idea, but as the story goes, according to what's on the wiki, at least, no one on the team enjoyed doing this. So it was very quickly decided that this was not the route they would take going forward, and it seems like they didn't enjoy doing continuity light, episodic, cartoon-styled stories. They really wanted to continue treating it like a proper comic, which they were starting to get into on the UK side as well now, and doing their own thing and doing stories with a little bit more stakes and more self-direction. So quickly abandoned, and I think it really leaves this as, I think this is, I guess to put a thesis on it, this is the last really experimental UK story. And I don't mean that in a positive light here. I mean, this is the last one where it feels like they're really trying to figure out what format their stories and their series should take before it settles into what it basically stays as with the Dinobot stories that round out our episode today.
I see. So it gets it gets its footing, as it were.
Yeah, so I think, right, because Man of Iron is such a weird one-off, and then
Yeah.
we have those two Spotlight stories that are very continuity agnostic and just doing some extra little one-off episodic stories with the early cast members. And then we have this two-parter, which is a cartoon adaptation. And then starting with the next two issues, those two Dinobot ones, we start to have original stories that start to get a little bit more serialized and develop characters a bit more. And that's the mode it settles into. So I think this is kind of a last hurrah in a negative way for those really early UK stories where it is finding its footing entirely and kind of just stumbling around with different experimentation.
Mm. Do the UK stories ever get away from the very toy-centric designs for all of the bots? Because I kept noting that like Megatron's coloring and a couple other points here and there felt very like tied into that toy design, and I didn't really like looking at it because I don't know why I don't love the gold coloring. It makes him seem heroic when he
she
should be evil.
she fears the toys. Yeah, this is the last hurrah for that as well, I believe. So I want to say that literally this set of 4 issues that we just read is the very end of its use of the toy designs, with the exception of the first annual. The first annual still is using the toy references, but for the main series, I think this is it. And it continues through. It's kind of a weird one. So Dam-Busters, especially, even though it is adapting the cartoon, it's sort of an odd hybrid point for the designs. So this is something that probably wouldn't register to you, but for me, it's relatively apparent. So a lot of the bots are more proportionate and they look like their cartoon selves. It's actually clear with Megatron too, where he is more proportionate and streamlined and humanoid. He doesn't have his gigantic trigger codpiece anymore, but he still has that gold chest, which is a toy packaging reference.
Yeah.
And then Optimus, especially when he is, if you have your tablet ready, there's a page where he
I do.
is knocked off the dam, I think at the end of that first issue.
Yeah.
And his legs. So Optimus is more cartoon proportioned, but he has a couple of toy specific features. So he has his bumper at the bottom, which is like a full bumper just hanging out there.
Oh yeah.
And his legs are very square, and he's these flat, like just silly duck feet. Those legs are straight off of the toy. So it's this odd mix of reference materials, and I'm actually not sure what led to that occurring, because it seems like they must have had some reference to cartoon materials to work off of at the time, but there are these very toyetic elements still slipping in there. So I don't know that it's ever been said what the artists were working with at this point, but it is sort of this odd mix, and this is very much a last hurrah with many quotes around it. It's not really a successful art style in my mind. But these issues are the last time we get those hybrid designs or those toy-centric designs.
Interesting. Okay. I was just curious about how long that lived on for.
Yeah, and it actually, there's a really prominent and weird example in the second issue of Dam-Busters. So if you scroll forward just a little bit, when Optimus and Bumblebee are running away from the dam, it has that very silly panel of Bumblebee's shocked face in the water that you pointed out when you were reading.
Yeah.
So right there, side-by-side panels, Bumblebee's toy head is very inhumanoid. He has just a visor mouth and visor eyes. And you can literally see that the panel prior to that one where he has a mouth and eyes.
Yeah.
So I don't know what was happening there, if they were just really just being cavalier with their reference material or what was happening. But yeah, even panel to panel, they're shifting between toy and cartoon-esque designs.
Yep.
And the last note on that is, even for the Dinobots, So in the Dinobot two-parter, they are, it's really subtle with them because their eventual, well, we've seen in the US issues, we got their streamlined cartoon model designs.
Mm-hmm.
And here we're getting their toy designs, but they look almost identical. But Grimlock has a very, he's got a lot of angles. He's got like a very round face with a lot of angles and just techno greebling on it. And that is his toy straight up. So we're still getting that here and there.
I did notice, yeah, they do seem kind of blocky and still very toy centric. Wait, is that Bumblebee or is
Um,
that a different guy? There's another panel where
what?
Bumblebee's face looks really weird. It's like the next page,
Oh,
and he has very clearly eyes
uh huh.
and a mouth. He's like, "Heads up, troops, here she
Let me
comes."
find the
He's
strange
talking
Bumblebee.
about the water.
I think that is him. Oh yeah, yeah. He's like horribly. He's like
Yeah,
drawn
it's
based
very
on nothing in a
confusing.
couple of panels. So Bumblebee looks different. Yeah, in
Yeah,
literally
especially
every
for, I
panel.
guess he's not really in the comic so far, like a beloved character yet. He hasn't had a lot of time in the limelight, but thinking about him in the wider world of Transformers, he is like one of the most popular Autobots, Transformers of them all. So to have his face be like really goofy and weird it stands out to me. Yeah, it's just a funny choice.
Yeah, that's interesting, and it's actually interesting that you note that. I've wanted to bring that up and just haven't found a moment for it. But yeah, you've noted it. Bumblebee is sort of the Pikachu mascot character now. That is not something that is ever really a thing in the entire G1 original 80s 90s era. So
Oh.
yeah, interesting to note that. So he is the first friendship bot, and he is very in his story role too. He's the first one to meet the humans, and
Hmm.
in the cartoon as well, he's coded as a very like affable. He's your big round yellow friend character, but he's very much just a guy. He's not really an oversized presence in terms of the cast. So
Mm.
yeah, just a general note on his role.
Yeah, I feel like in terms of what I was expecting from Bumblebee, Ratchet took that spot much more in a much bigger way that stood out to me. Like he's the one who's actually bonding with humans. He's the one in the spotlight more of the time. So that's yeah, that was an interesting not change, but something that I didn't expect.
Yeah, Bumblebee's oversized role in terms of the greater franchise didn't start until the Michael Bay movies. And
I see.
actually most series, because there were, this is a whole tangent away from the comic, but yeah, he's not an oversized presence in the original era. And in the early 2000s reboots that they started doing, some of them don't even have Bumblebee. So they're very
Oh.
not beholden to the original cast. There's an Optimus and a Megatron and maybe a couple of other recurring names, but
Hmm.
multiple series in a row in the early 2000s pre-movies do not feature even a character named Bumblebee. So that's very much something that uh, I think is like retroactively applied to people's view of the franchise, but it is all post 2007.
Wild. Okay. Yeah, I did not realize that.
Yeah. So going back to Dam-Busters in and of itself, I guess we can get into some of the other franchise elements and cartoon elements, but I do want to go straight to the beginning of the issue and talk about our bar, our Oregonian bar, definitely filled with Americans, where we have our definitely American truck driver talking about this rubbish on TV, which would never be said in the States.
No, we don't say rubbish. We would maybe say garbage or trash or something to that effect.
Yeah, definitely. I think the bar one really gets me because it's juxtaposed with the barkeep. Uh, his dialogue is, "Ain't you interested in this?" So it's this clumsy attempt
Yeah.
at folksy American dialogue, and you're like, "Oh, he's doing it." This is Simon Furman, I think, in his 20s in the UK. Oh, he's doing it. He's writing a folksy American character, and then the line, oh, immediately before that is, "How about turning that rubbish off?" So so close, so close.
So close. Just missed the mark by a bit there. Yeah, I remember you mentioned something else. I can't find it, but there are a couple Britishisms in here that do stand out as an American.
Yeah, I think there might be a U lot or something to that effect in the town at the end of the issue too. But yeah, otherwise, this is a pretty straightforward sort of half cartoon adaptation. So in terms of what it's doing as an adaptation, it drops a lot of the surrounding plot from the cartoon to just get straight to it in the 11 pages it has.
Mm-hmm.
It drops the different human characters that are in the cartoon, so our Buster equivalent. And this is yet another story that can't possibly fit into the comic unless you really squint. Because if you recall the opening miniseries, there's really no room for these other episodic Autobot Decepticon adventures to be happening. It's very tight
Yeah.
in terms of events for those first 4 issues. So
Mm.
when did this happen? I don't know. Sometime, I guess. It doesn't really fit. And I think this is the last instance of that as well.
Yeah. I was wondering when exactly this would have happened, but I guess, like you said, you have to kind of imagine that maybe somewhere it did. The one thing I did really like about these couple issues about the dam was the end when they are talking with or they're being yelled at rather by the humans who have been affected by the flood, and they've kind of lumped the Autobots together with the Decepticons because they don't know that not all the alien robots are under one banner. And then Mirage, gets angry at them like, you ungrateful, sniveling little organism, we risked our lives to save your misbegotten town. And of course, that just makes them feel like they're vindicated in thinking that the Autobots are also evil. It's just an interesting moment. It does make you think about something that you've mentioned before, where the Transformers are kind of, even the Autobots who mean to do good, just as a presence being there on Earth can be really a negative one a lot of the time. So yeah, I found that interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely my favorite part of these issues. I think it's the most notable thing about these issues as well. It's part of the series building up this theme of, yeah, again, just conflict is bad, and the collateral damage and the mere existence of war is not to be celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets more and more vehement about that as it goes on. It might one of my one of my theses for the series as a whole is that it actually starts to feel like a very anti-war book,
Mm.
and it's able to do that because of its robotic cast, which lets it go places it otherwise couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, this is definitely a nod to those themes, and most interestingly, this is its point of deviation with the cartoon episodes it's adapting.
Oh, I see.
So, in typical Transformers cartoon fashion, and you don't have a lot of exposure to this, but they're dead opposite on this front. So, in the cartoon, the Transformers, the good ones, are basically a wholly positive presence, and if you're friends with the Autobots, things are going to work out, you're going to benefit. They show up on other planets and help solve their problems.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very much the tone, right? It's very upbeat. And the comic is the opposite on that in basically every single way. And so this is where the team, right? I guess maybe just Simon Furman or editorial along with him, I suppose, chose to deviate, which I think is really interesting. So it almost winds up being this case of, okay, we'll do the cartoon adaptation, but we're going to give it a downbeat ending,
Mm-hmm.
and we're never doing it again. And that sounds about right. That's pretty in character for the series.
That's very fair. Yeah, a good compromise, I would say.
Otherwise, we get our sole appearance of the Optimus Prime axe and the mace, which you laughed out loud
Oh,
at
yeah.
here. These have gone on to become quite iconic, showing up in other media. Again, all, I think, post 2010s. This just was not a thing for a long time. But yeah, in the cartoon episode, this is adapting. Optimus pulls out an energy axe once ever. He never does it again. It's just a bit of early weirdness. And then it never shows up in the comic except for this one adaptation, but it's gone on to be a recurring element of future Optimi. But it is very silly.
Interesting. So he never uses that again. Does Megatron ever use his mace?
No,
I see.
no, but that's also gone on to be something that is associated with the character. So lots of future nods to the axe and the mace, but it was never really a thing in the original fiction. It was just a one-off bit of oddness in the cartoon, and then a one-off bit of oddness in the comic, only because it's adapting that episode.
Okay. A couple other interesting things. I think, you know what? Maybe it's later. Never mind. I was gonna say,
Now go
in
on.
these issues, there's a couple more interesting exclamations, like exclamatory religious-isms. I don't know if
Hmm.
that's not really a word, but you know what I mean. That we haven't seen before, I think. One of them is by Iacon's dome. and they say by
Oh,
the dome a
yes.
couple times. So then that, has me wondering, who is Iacon? What is Iacon? What is this dome they speak of? I'm sure it's some kind of like holy being or place of worship maybe for the Transformers. There were a couple other ones too, but if you have something to say about Iacon's dome.
Yeah, well, I've got a lot to say about Iacon's Dome. Uh, I actually happen to be looking at another one of those, which is just coincidentally on the page in front of me right now, which is by the Celestial
Right.
Spires. And what are the Celestial Spires? Well, you may be surprised to learn I have no idea. I don't think that ever comes up again. It might. Don't at me. It might be a little footnote in a future issue.
Okay.
The Dome of Iacon, I think Iacon might have gotten a reference in the very first issue already. It's a city on Cybertron.
Oh yeah. It's where sorry, Prime is from, right? Optimus is from Iacon?
Yeah, I think there is a reference to it in the narration for the opening of the very first issue, and it'll come back up, but it's just a major location on Cybertron.
I see. I had forgotten that.
And it apparently has a dome. It has a great dome.
I see.
What an
What an
icon.
Iacon.
I think that is all I have to say about Decepticon Dam-Busters, unless you have yet untold, maybe unplundered, unexplored depths to this story that have yet to reveal themselves. Lexi, anything else?
No,
Okay.
I mean, not really. I guess maybe just one thing about what's her name? Josie. Her hair is not as nice in this. I feel like that's not really anything to speak about. But um we do get an extra moment that we didn't get in the previous issues with GB Blackrock where he's looking at his like this huge weapon
Yeah.
and he is very angry at the robots and he's never really showed that side before up till this point. He showed like frustration and he some anger, but never in this way where he's like, I will get them back and I have this specific weapon to do so. So I was only expecting Josie to be the one coming in with her skimpy outfit and circuit breakerness. But it looks like we'll also be getting something from GB Blackrock and his huge like gun, whatever that is. I don't know. It looks almost like it could be a planetary
I was
telescope,
going to say,
but
it's
it's just a huge rifle.
very telescope-esque. It has a little tiny seat on it, which is cute. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, this is one of the few times, actually well spotted. So yeah, potential hint at future plot points there. This is one of the few times in the UK book that it will explicitly expound upon or set up future US developments. It almost never does that. It really tries to steer clear of it moving forward. So
Hmm.
this is another little early anomaly there.
Okay. And he decisively has a mustache here. So,
Yes, there is no doubt about the mustache presence.
yeah,
Thank
important.
goodness.
And then we move into the other issues, which feature fan favorite
Oh, we
Guardian,
love Guardian. Finally.
about
Now,
whom
Lexi, you were
we
asking
love
me
him.
when is Guardian going to show up? I think right before we even got into the series and recording, you were saying, where is I hope
Yeah,
I see Guardian.
wearing my Guardian gal shirt every day, waiting for him to appear.
She really has this.
Here he is.
He's here, Guardian.
It's
Finally, our prayers are answered. Guardian. Uh,
wow.
Lexi, tell me about Guardian.
I have so many questions about Guardian
I do too.
because it says I'm reading this again now, and I love the setup for this because the first pages of issue 31
Mhm.
are set up in this interesting like narration format where it's like the catalyst, Guardian, the reaction, the shock of Sludge and Grimlock and Snarl, the response, they charge at him. I just really like how it's set up. It's unique. It is a little silly and clunky, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, can we talk about, before we get into Guardian, just
Hmm.
Simon Furman writing for his life on these two issues? So that continues the
Yeah.
very flowery narrative devices, and I'm of two minds on it because it's overwrought and it is clunky and it feels like a first attempt, which it is, fair enough. But
Mhm.
also it really, I guess these early UK issues don't do a lot for me on the story front, but they are really trying in their presentation and scripting fronts, and I think that's really clear.
Mhm.
So, yeah, you can feel, for better or for worse, you can really feel the attempt to elevate the scripting of the comic in this opening and the opening of the following issue.
Yeah, definitely. It comes through. And it's much more readable. Like, I think back to the first issues, they were US
Mm.
issues, but the narrative text that you had to read there, and it was just so dense and really hard to follow. And this is much clearer and more fun. So I like interacting with this a little bit more. But back to Guardian, my favorite. I had forgotten about this, but it says he was once an Autobot. Well, I guess I knew that. He's like once was on the good guy's side. He appeared first with Auntie, I
Yes,
believe.
wow, I'm surprised you remember that actually, because he's barely in that.
I
He shows up and is
remember.
dispatched off panel or off page. But yeah, he accosts
Yeah.
Windcharger and Ravage.
Right. I do vaguely remember that. And I'm confused because he seems to be one of the only, like, we have all of these sentient robots that are the
Mm.
Transformers, but he is a battle drone. And specifically, I think they talk about him, they describe him as um, oh, what did they say? He's a certain level of battle drone. He's
Oh,
like
Omega
a
level or
mega
something.
level
Yeah,
battle
he's a
drone.
bad dude.
So now I'm wondering, they have a whole army of battle drones, apparently, maybe, unsure, unclear, many levels, a hierarchy of those battle drones. And my biggest question, are they sentient? It doesn't seem like they are.
Mm.
It seems like they're programmed to like follow a certain leader, but then that makes me very concerned and confused. How do they differentiate?
Well,
What is
I just want to be clear.
what is it?
Obviously, Guardian is not sentient. He has no interior life, which is why we get his POV later where he's having flashbacks and memories. But don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's why I'm worried. Is he really sentient? And they're just like, ah, he's just a drone. Like, why are we differentiating
I don't know.
in that
I mean,
way?
he's not supposed to be insentient, but then in the second of these two issues, he has flashbacks. He has like scattered, fractured memories of Shockwave giving him commands. So he does have an interior life. So I don't know what the difference between Guardian and a Transformer is. This it seems discriminatory to me.
What is going on here? I'm curious. I'm concerned. That's all.
Yeah, so I don't like what Guardian does for the story at all. I'm very I'm very anti the presence of Guardian because he only serves to confuse things morally and in a world building sense because he's very strong, right? So he takes out all of the Dinobots. They can't touch him, which it was
Mm-hmm.
shocking that Megatron could do that in the previous issues. So what how do you lose a war with Guardian on your side? Why is everyone not just fighting with Guardians? Why do they not have 50 Guardians? And I can only assume that maybe he does have like an obvious Achilles heel weakness, which is still kind of a hurdle to get at. I'm just going to assume
Mm-hmm.
for my peace of mind that they can only operate within proximity of a ship or base, so they're not good for going out into the field. Maybe they're solely defensive. That's all I got.
Mm.
None of that is given to
That's
us,
why
but that's
they're
the only way I can justify why the entire conflict is not fought with Guardian drones, who may or may not be the sentient, downtrodden class of Cybertronians. I hate Guardian. I wish Guardian didn't exist.
the Guardian presents the a similar conflict in our minds when we're reading this fantasy world as the Eagles do in Lord of the Rings. You question why they didn't just take them to Mount Doom.
Yes,
And we question why they don't just have an army of guardians on their side. Um yeah, it is confusing and I do want to know more about like the drone race or if they have others or do they just never mention that
it's
again?
never
Is that
mentioned.
something I can just write
Please
off?
write it off for the better. That's why I say I don't
Okay.
like it because it's just this bit of early UK only oddness that is definitely not fully
Oh,
examined
I
or
see.
not written with the thought of a long term ongoing series in mind. So just forget it. Forget it, baby. It's Cybertron Town. Just yeah,
Okay.
forget. Do not mourn Guardian. Do not remember Guardian. Guardian offers only confusion and madness.
Good to know. Okay.
But he's here now,
Other
and
things that
yeah, he is
happen.
wrathful. So yeah, let's talk about Wrath of Guardian.
Yeah, Wrath. He's wrathful. He has emotions, he has apparently memories, but he's not sentient.
He's
Don't
not
worry.
sentient. He just has
Everything's
memories.
fine.
Um,
He just has memories.
so yeah, we
Let's see, Buster. Oh, sorry, go
oh
for it.
well, we get our flowery narration, and then this is the first of this two-parter that is very Dinobot focused. So we moved on from Ratchet to a bit of spotlighting on the Dinobots. Um, and then we also get a check-in with Shockwave and Optimus Prime, where Optimus notes that he's used up the last of his Matrix energy, feeding into these 6 brain modules that Shockwave has repaired. So that's my little continuity fix attempt that I mentioned last episode, where they figured he still had the Matrix inside him and they needed to explain where it was going. And this actually, again, beats the US issues to the punch on confirming where the Matrix has gone.
Yeah, we get the moment with Buster, who is trying to, I was going to say heal because it's a machine.
This is the radio's blood,
He's
Dad.
trying, he's trying to fix a broken radio. And he's like, oh, it's never going to work. And then he gets one of his headaches, and the creation matrix takes over and shoots out a laser or something. I don't know. It touches the radio and fixes it immediately. So we have one page checking in with Buster, and he's not doing great. He also looks like he's 50.
I was just gonna say, this is a 45-year-old, 15-year-old boy. He's extremely ripped too.
He is, yeah. He's an old ripped man.
But also Optimus confirms that he's passed the Matrix onto Buster on the previous page.
Yes. In his in his little thought bubble there.
As you noted last time, had not been explicitly confirmed, and I spoiled that for you. So it's not just me. The UK book is also looking to spoil it for you.
Everyone's spoiling it for me.
Yep.
That's okay. I did want to talk about, before we leave that that part of the issue, I like the dynamic between the Dinobots and Ratchet. Because Ratchet is very intelligent, he's very level-headed and rational, and the Dinobots are very much not that. They're the opposite. They're very willful, especially Grimlock. He's very guided by his like instincts and his wrath and his emotions. Not to say that Ratchet doesn't have his own emotions and curiosities and stuff like that, but I like their dynamic. I do hope we get more of Ratchet centered stories because I have tended to like those a lot. But I know as we start awakening the other Autobots again and healing them up, we'll probably dive into some more of their backstories too. So
yeah,
that's all I wanted to say. I didn't really have anything specific to say about that.
That's very much the focus of these issues. So this is a Dinobot spotlight, essentially. So this is our first bit of personality for them in general, because the US issue they were introduced in really didn't give them a lot to do. They were sort of a plot point, basically. They were just solving the conflict for Ratchet. And I think we noted Grimlock only got 2 lines there, maybe. So this is our real Grimlock introduction. And it's actually interesting that this one goes to the UK book first, because it sets up what essentially is their personality across both halves of the book. And the UK gets to beat the US book to the punch there as well, or maybe, cement it in general. So Simon Furman, the head UK writer now, really likes Grimlock. Moving forward, he'll be doing a lot with Grimlock, and this is his first foray with him. And it's actually, I don't know, I think you've seen a little bit of cartoon Grimlock, Lexi?
I have, yeah.
He's very different. So it's almost a completely separate character here. He's not, he's basically a comic relief character in the cartoon. He's got a little bit of a rebellious edge, and that's basically nowhere in the book. He's just this sort of, he's like a Wolverine archetype.
He is, yeah. He feels a lot more full of rage and a little bit of darkness, maybe. Very fiercely protective of his crew. Not so much the Autobots in general, but the Dinobots specifically. Very protective of them. Very prideful, so far from what I can tell. And yeah, just ready to rip people to pieces at any point.
Yeah, so we've got a divided loyalty there where he, is maybe more attuned to the needs of his particular group of the Dinobots than the larger Autobot forces. Yeah, and that's set up pretty effectively here, I think. And I was going to ask you to summarize Grimlock's character for me, and you just did that without touching on special powers or the fact that he's a dinosaur or anything. You just gave me his characterization. So I think of all the UK stories so far, in terms of the role as a character spotlight or a sort of character-focused one-off, this is by far the most successful. Because I think it's the first time where you could actually get to the end and say something and define a character for its spotlit transformer. where we noted that, yeah,
Definitely.
it wasn't really the case with Gears or Brawn. No, sorry, it wasn't really the case with Brawn or Windcharger. I can't even recall their names off the top of my head.
Yeah, exactly. No, this definitely stands out more as a character piece and a successful one. So were the Ratchet issues. I think those ones were little bit more successful in my mind, but just because I prefer him as a character. Although the other Dinobots didn't get really any, we didn't get any deeper with their characters. I know nothing about them except for Swoop, who I guess we can say now is brave and sacrificial.
Is
He's
sacrificial
scrap.
a character trait? I was going to ask you as a joke to describe Swoop to me afterward. Who, I guess we'll just go ahead and get into our final issue today. Swoop dies.
Yeah,
I was going to ask you to
Swoop died.
define Swoop and joke that we hardly knew him, but we literally hardly know him.
We literally hardly knew him. He was just like, "I'll take him
This is my
because I can
time.
fly."
Yeah, I
Yeah,
do want to say I didn't mean to
poor
imply that these are
guy.
stronger than the Ratchet issues, and of everything so far, the Ratchet issues are by far the strongest for me. And in general, I'm a lot more simpatico with the U.S. issues at this point because I think they're less flashy. So I guess getting a little bit ahead, but these are written. The UK issues now are being written in maybe a slightly more elevated way presentationally. So we have these attempts at the really flowery, interesting prose. We have that, the colon thing set up of number 31, and then in 32 we have some, admittedly, interesting play with the paneling and narration where we have time. There's never enough of it, and it has that 1, 2, 3 going down the center of the page in the 6 panel split,
Hmm.
and there's a bookending play with time. There's never enough of it, but sometimes there's enough, and then at the end it's time. There's always too little. So they're playing with narration and layout in a way that is aiming higher for the book. And
Yeah,
the US issues presentationally are pretty draftsman-like and plain. Uh, Even that last set where they got a little bit bolder. But right now, with where the two sides are at, the US book is telling more interesting stories for me because they're able to play with status quo, but they're also just, I think, due to the inclinations of the author, a little bit more humanistic. And uh,
yeah,
these are excitingly presented, just bot focused drama. And that's kind of where they'll be aiming for a little while. And I think this is
hmm
just my theory because I didn't read these as a kid, but I think had I read these in the intended demographic, the UK stories probably would have stuck with me more, or I would have had more fun with them. I think like they would have been more what I
hmm
wanted. Like, oh, these my favorite characters from the toys or the cartoon or whatever. I'm getting these really dramatic, weighty soap opera comic stories with them. That's great, right? Those are really going to stick with me. Whereas the US side is maybe a little like dull or heady. Again, it feels sort of agnostic of its target audience, but as an adult, so much more interest for me on the US side, at least where we are right now.
definitely. Yeah, the US side is a bit heavier and a bit more dramatic and strange, I guess, more interesting in that way. And yeah, the UK one fits the demographic, is more exciting, like you said. And yeah, for kids, I think, in a lot of ways. But we also have death. We also have dark moments. Poor Swoop, he is dead. And they have a brief but moving ceremony
It's explicitly brief but
to
moving.
remember.
So we know it didn't take too long, but
Yeah,
it was a tearjerker.
it was moving. Yes, they are busy, but they have time to grieve. So that's nice. Yeah, it does make me wonder. I guess anytime I see them do something ritualistic or some kind of event as Transformers, it does make me wonder what those events are usually like, what they were like back on
Hmm.
Cybertron, what kind of traditions they have that go into those. It looks like they're all sending up beams, I guess, from guns
Yeah, beams of light or
into the
just
sky.
shooting into the sky. It's important to get out your giant glowing
Something.
egg when you have a funeral.
Yeah, there's a giant. Yeah. I was assuming the giant glowing egg was like what they could collect of
Oh,
Swoop.
maybe.
I don't know though. This is completely my guess, but I thought that was what they could collect of Swoop, and that's like his energon or whatever. So
Ah.
maybe they can bring him back, but they're also having a funeral, so it seems pretty definite that he's gone. it's unclear, but that's why it makes me really curious. Like, even though it's just one panel on this page, I'm like, I want to see more of this sad funeral.
Do you think it's an egg for Swoop because they were like, oh, well, he's a pterodactyl, so we'll build a giant egg for him
That's
in
racist.
memory? Okay. No one mourns
I
Guardian.
was just kidding. No one mourns Guardian. Ian, we know why.
Okay.
He was a drone. He wasn't sentient.
Anyway, that's it for these issues, unless you have something else to add. We've touched on Grimlock's characterization, the Dinobot, sort of where the series is headed at this point. The presentation of, I think, especially Wrath of Grimlock is interesting. I like how they play with the. Well, I say that it's trying very hard. It's trying maybe a little too hard with its sort of
Maybe just a little.
yeah, it's clock placements and the time narration. But you know what? I respect it.
But
It's
it is
yeah,
fun.
it's better to be aiming high.
I agree. Yeah. I do like it, I think, overall, in terms of that specific element. Even though it's a little bit silly, it adds to it in a way that I think, as you said, if I was a kid reading it, I would really, really enjoy that. So,
Yeah, I think if I were hitting these issues, I would have been I'd be like, oh, this is the most dramatic thing ever. We have Dinobot died, and well, the narration's so
yeah,
heavy, and it as an adult, it's all a little fluffy. And again, the more
a
humanistic
little bit.
stories on the U.S. side are much more interesting to me. But I think this really had the thumb on the pulse of its target audience and giving them stories that are accessible but do feel that little bit elevated. So I do see why this, even these early issues, it really it improves drastically as it goes on. We're still in sort of early era weirdness here, but I definitely see why this has stuck in the memories of people who read it growing up.
Yeah, the nostalgia factor, I can see why it was there.
Well, Lexi, let's touch on predictions really quickly. So we're still at the same place were with the US book. We've gotten a couple of updates on characters. So
Right.
I'll ask you for predictions, I guess, on both sides now. Any predictions for the main story in the US book, and then any predictions for maybe future UK specific intermediary developments.
Yeah. For the US book specifically, I don't think my predictions will have changed that much because they're both coming back to the same spot. Yeah, so I think it'll be Circuit Breaker, aka Josie. She'll be wreaking havoc on the Transformers, probably both Autobots and Decepticons, especially as the Autobots are getting healed up now and we'll be back in the fray. I guess now I have a prediction about GB Blackrock
Hmm.
will be a little bit more present in all of that as well. I didn't think that before, but with the little tidbit here we had with
Oh,
him,
there's
it
nothing
makes me
little
think
about
that
it.
he'll be involved. Yeah, it's a huge gun.
It's definitely overcompensating.
I have a hopeful prediction that we'll get, more interesting moments from the rest of the
Mhm.
Autobots like we've gotten with Ratchet. And I think that'll come to fruition. Maybe not immediately, but definitely at some point. Uh, what else? So I was going to predict that Shockwave was going to fall as a commander, but you mentioned in the past that Megatron does not come back as the commander, maybe ever or only briefly. So scratch that prediction.
Mm.
Yeah, I guess my main one is just that Circuit Breaker will wreak havoc, and that's pretty obvious. But um, oh, I have a prediction that Optimus will regain his body. For the Dinobots, is that the other one that I'm predicting for?
Well,
A separate
I guess yeah. What's in store
storyline?
for the Dinobots? So I've given you that they won't show up in the U.S. book again for a little while. So what do you think is in store for their future?
Um, I mean, obviously they're going to go off and have their own adventures. I feel like they're going to have some run-ins with humans that they're going to have to deal with. They seem to tend to to prefer being in their dinosaur forms, but I wonder how long that's going to last or if they're going to have to deal with like being in their robot humanoid forms more often to try kind of like blend in with not society, but like get by more
I
easily.
think Grimlock's gonna have to go to the bank. He's gonna have to set up like an account, and he's gonna be like, "Well, hold on, guys. I got this. Let me let
Can I
me
set up my
let me
my
transform out of my
401k,
dinosaur mode
please?
so I can go in here.
Into my normal humanoid
Hello,
mode.
fellow
They'll
humans.
all no one will ever know. Yeah, maybe one more Dinobot will die.
Whoa, shocking prediction. Which one?
I don't remember the rest of
I
them.
was gonna say,
Only
quick, name all of them. There's no
Grimlock.
way. Yeah, even I could like.
Hold on.
Okay.
Grimlock,
Mhm.
Slag, Slug.
Slag. Slug is future Slag when they can't use that name anymore.
Oh, dang. That's all I got.
Okay, so it's Grimlock, and I could not do this until recently, only because I have like figures of them now. I've just been enough into the fandom. But Grimlock, Swoop. I have to focus to do this though. Grimlock, Swoop, the most prominent two. Slag, Sludge, and Snarl.
Gnarl. I was gonna say Snark.
I wish one of them were called Snark. All right, great predictions. Now, Lexi, I'm going to ask you one other thing. We're headed into the holiday season here in 1985. You're a 6-year-old boy. You've been reading a comic. What Transformers toy do you want? How is this doing as a toy promotion vehicle, which it has largely ignored as a duty?
After these issues, I would say Grimlock. If I was a 6-year-old boy,
Okay,
I would say
show
Grimlock.
your homework.
Well, because he's finally gotten character now. He's gotten to speak and actually have like things to do. And he's a T-Rex. If I'm a 6-year-old boy, I want a T-Rex toy that transforms into a little person. Of course.
That's fair.
But also Swoop, of course, because R.I.P. and we must remember him.
Yeah. Now, actually, this may or may not have been a factor in Swoop's fate. I don't know that it's ever been confirmed, but apparently Swoop was not available in the UK, so he was the only Dinobot that was never brought over for some reason. Yeah,
Really?
so
They're like, we have to kill
oh,
him.
maybe I don't know. I've heard stories of a lot of UK fans who had childhoods looking for Swoop or just figuring that Swoop was out there somewhere because he was still advertised. But he apparently,
The lost
yeah,
Swoop.
it's just he never came out there. So I don't know if that was a factor there. But you could not get Swoop if you were reading these issues.
And now they've told us why. They're
Exactly.
like they're like explaining it to a 6-year-old. Tommy's like, "Why can't I want Swoop?" No, no, Tommy. Swoop is
Swoop is
dead,
dead
remember? We can't
forever.
have Swoop.
So you first learn about death. It's not the character dying in the comic. It's realizing that he's unavailable in real life, and that's when you first feel the permanence
Yeah.
shuffling off this mortal coil. Anyway, speaking of 6-year-olds, 6-year-olds, should we check in on letters?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so this is a feature of the UK book and the US book that we haven't touched on up until now. Both of them run letters columns. Unfortunately, the US letters are not well archived, and we're using the recent collected volumes, so we don't have easy access to all of the different US letters to check in on. But thanks to TF Wiki, we do have a full archive of the UK letters, and they're a little bit more interesting because they're answered in character in the guise of one of the Transformers at a different one at various points. Will host the letters column. So right now it is Soundwaves sharing a name with this series, hosted by Soundwave himself. And we'll just go through and pull out a couple of our favorite letters from these particular issues. So, Lexi, what have you got in the mailbag?
Let's see. Yeah, reading through these letters, a lot of them, they're all fun in their own way. I think one of them that stood out to me was in issue 30. There's a letter from a girl who had been reading, who's a Transformers fan, and she talks about how she and her brother love the comic and the toys very much. She has Jazz, Hupper, and Gears, and her favorite, Cliff Jumper, who I don't really remember. I don't really
He has not
remember
done a
Cliff
single thing
Jumper.
in the comic, so he's basically a non-entity.
I see. But she loves the toy, and how she talks about playing with the toys with her brother, and how she would love like a real version of Clip Jumper to help her out in the battles with her brother's Transformers. So I thought that was really cute and just a nice touch to see that there are girl fans out there. I'm sure probably not nearly as many as younger boys, but it's refreshing to see.
Absolutely. A couple that I want to pick out. We actually have a couple in here that are referencing the US book. So kids who had maybe spent time in America or just gotten a hold of some imported US comics in the UK. And generally, the UK book for a long time, it's pretty coy with ever alluding to the US stories or the fact that there is a separate book that they're pulling stories from. Maybe it's just too confusing or they just don't want, to self-cannibalize or the competition there. But they do basically own up to it. So the response to this letter asking about getting US issues in the UK is to say, number one, they actually say there might be some comic shops that could order them in. And then they encourage them to wait because they'll be reprinted in the UK on higher quality paper. So a little bit of shade at the US book there. But that's sort of notable, just that they're owning up to the existence of the two books and how that response is praised. I would like to pull out my favorite here. So this one made me laugh out loud, and I'll just read it minus the names. This is in issue 32. Dear Sir, could you please print my son's birthday in your comic? I know he will be over the moon to see his name in his favorite comic. He's really pleased that your comic comes every week now. And this is someone's mother. Their response in the character of Soundwave is, very well. Name. You are 10 years old on October 29th. How you cannot know this anyway is beyond me. Sometimes I despair for the intellect of you humans. That's great. That's a hilarious response. And I love that they have an antagonistic presence answering the letters in this era of the
Me
book.
too. I thought that was a really interesting choice because, I mean, I guess in terms of his name, it goes well with, in terms of a choice. I mean, we obviously liked it. We chose it as the name of our podcast. But to have, yeah, a villain be the voice of it is really a cool choice, I think. Because then you can have a lot of fun with it as a kid. Be like, oh, he's mean,
Yeah, well, I want Soundwave to be mean to me. There are a couple of letters where there are a couple of letters where writers are ranking favorite toys or characters, and he's incensed that he's not higher up in the list or that an Autobot has been put ahead of him. So they're having a lot of fun with it, and I think, yeah, the letters columns are actually a really beloved and fondly remembered element of the UK book in particular, and I definitely see why. So there are 4 different eras of different letters columns hosts, and they're each they're very fondly remembered in general.
That's great. Who are the other hosts?
Grimlock is next.
Okay.
We get Grimgrams, and then Ratchet hosts a single issue as a fill-in, but he's too boring. So there's Rat Chat for one
Aw,
issue. There's like behind the scenes narratives that they write for all of the letters hosts as well, and how they're like switching up the gig. Uh,
that's fun.
after that there is Dreadwind, much later, and then Blaster, who we haven't met in the book yet, but he's the Autobot Soundwave equivalent. He's the red stereo.
Gotcha. Okay. And is Dreadwave a new um Decepticon?
Dreadwind is, yeah, he's also Decepticon.
Oh,
He's an
Dreadwind.
88 Decepticon, so it's quite a ways into the book.
I see. Okay. Looking forward to hearing from all of them.
Yeah. I think that wraps up everything I have to talk about for these issues, Lexi, unless you have any final words on any final words. It
Am I
sounds like a
going to
threat.
die?
Do you have anything to say for our dear departed Swoop?
Oh, R.I.P. You left us too soon,
Okay.
dear Swoop.
All right. We'll be back in next time to round out the first major US arc, going through issues 9 through 12, and we'll see you all then.
All
Time
right.
to
Ian, you want to play us out?
roll out.